A message of support is what EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen wants to convey on her visit to Kyiv. Last night, the EU has approved an important ban on Russian coal as part of a new package of sanctions against Moscow. The EU imports 20 million euros worth of Russian coal daily, which is a fraction of what it pays for Russian oil and gas. Measures also include an import ban for Russian timber, cement and vodka. It prohibits entry for Russian ships to EU ports and a full transaction ban on 4 key Russian banks. Let's get the view of Alexander Rodnanski. He's an economic advisor to the Ukrainian president. Welcome to DW, Alexander. What are your thoughts on the latest package of sanctions that the EU agreed on?
Well, thanks for having me. Well, it's a good step. It's a step forward, but it's not sufficient. So sanctioning coal is about 4 billion euros in imports per year. That's nothing compared to the overall fossil fuels and energy imports that are coming from Russia. This year, it's projected to be somewhere around $321 billion that Russia is going to make by exporting oil, gas, and coal to Europe. Now, coal is banned, so that's the numbers. And 4 billion in coal is really not sufficient. We need more. We need sanctions on oil, sanctions on gas. Oil is the place to start. Oil is easier to substitute away from, and that's what needs to be done. There's other sanctions that have been introduced on individuals. We'll have to see the lists exactly, but that's also a good step forward.
What makes you so sure that targeting Russia's energy sector is the right lever? Moscow's war chest must be filled.
Well, that's right. So Russia's budget is sort of 50 or more than 50% reliant on energy exports. And so most of that, 1/3 of that is really due to oil. And that's the place to start. That's what we've been saying, because we know that gas is harder to substitute away from, especially in Germany, which has made itself very reliant on Russian gas over the years. And there is no LNG terminals. There is no infrastructure to start importing gas from somewhere else. So oil is the place to start. Oil is easier to substitute from the Middle East, let's say. There's terminals, there is infrastructure for it to be transported. So that's the obvious thing. But of course, as you say, there's also the other 40 or 45% of exports that are coming from Russia, and those could also be targeted. Things like metals, chemicals, other things. It's important to target exports and not just imports into Russia, because that's what's going to devalue the ruble. That's what's going to depreciate the ruble, and that's what's going to drive up inflation in Russia and really drive home the message to the Russian population that this war needs to stop. So this is what we are encouraging and asking to do.
Alexander, I want to talk to you about the situation in Ukraine. Despite the fighting, the war, the hardship, the death, is there still economic activity?
Yes, there is still economic activity. In fact, some of the economic activity is now resuscitating, especially around Kyiv, because we've basically, hit back at the Russians, made the Russians withdraw around Kyiv in the north of Ukraine. So certainly life is starting to return slowly. And in some other areas, the west of Ukraine has never been that badly hit, although there were bombardments, of course, and still are. But we're still working. So we see, for example, agriculture is very much, there's production going on. Now it's the planting season, and people are workers, agricultural workers and farmers are planting their seeds. They're even coming to our banks and asking for working capital loans. So that's, we see signs of activity for sure.
Ukraine's defense minister has been calling on NATO members to provide more weapons fast. Do you feel that there's enough economic support as well?
Well, we're grateful for the economic support that we're getting. There's definitely, economic support for, balance of payments. There's macroeconomic stability that we're getting from the IMF, the World Bank, our European partners, the US. So far we're holding up. But of course, going forward, what we will need is a big recovery fund for Ukraine in order to rebuild our infrastructure, rebuild all the destroyed roads, bridges, and buildings. There's already an estimate out there, which I've recently seen by the Ministry of the Economy, which says that we've lost about $120 billion worth of infrastructure. For comparison, over the years from 2014 to 2020, the EU has granted us around $103 billion for the construction of roads, bridges, and airports. So that's just, to put things in perspective. It has already been more destroyed than what we received over 6 years.
Thank you for your time.